you can become weaker or wiser, prideful or proud, small versus strong. And that is a choice. As many veterans can relate, we don't like to talk about our stories, which makes Operation Pay It Forward, Continue Mission, National Ability Center, and many others such a great resource, because there we can go and spend time with our brothers and sisters and not have to talk about it. We can just be ourselves and they understand. And that is what makes it very unique from going to maybe receiving some counseling when you're really uncomfortable. It's a good stepping stone. However, it's not the only method of recovery and healing. I'm going to back up and tell a little bit about my story, which is very important for context. Like many arrogant young teenagers, you look at the service and you say, I can join the service and I'll be able to get a college education out of it. They'll pay for school. And I was the same way. I saw an opportunity to pay for my education by serving in the Navy. At that point, the attitude was not serving my country. I'm just going to be honest. I didn't know what that meant. And so I entered delay entry program, which is a buffer in between starting boot camp and waiting for the MOS or rate or job that you're signed up for. And within that time, the USS Cole was struck. And my recruiter said to me, so are you still going to enlist? And I said, absolutely, more than ever. And that's when my attitude started to shift, that, this is maybe something more than I thought it was going to be. And then through boot camp, I learned about honor, courage, and commitment. I learned about self-imposed limitations, moving past those, and thinking about, okay, how have I limited myself? And what can I do to advance past that? Learned about those things. Then I was stationed on the USS George Washington out in Norfolk, Virginia. And we were in the shipyards, and that was a harsh reality. A young girl who thinks she's tough in her dress whites, showing up in a shipyard. And before I even got to my office, my whites were already dirty. But that's par for the course. After that, we started on our workups, which means you go and do donuts in your ship, in the water to make sure it won't sink after the shipyards. It's a really good step. You don't want to sink. So we work it up, get it comfortable with the water. And it was our first workup. We were only supposed to be out 4 days. And on the second day, we were down by the tip of Florida. New York was attacked. It was September 11th, 2001. And that is when the story really changed for me. By the next morning, our ship was in New York Harbor. And we could still see it smoldering. And dotted throughout the harbor were all sizes of ships. They were not allowed to come in. Everything from a freight ship to a small fishing vessel. It was frozen and the water was still. And as we're coming up the shore, I could see people standing on their balconies watching us. And we went in, did a circle in an aircraft carrier, which is a nuclear vessel, shouldn't stay that close to land. So then we left, went back out to deeper water, and the governor of New York sent a message and said, thank you. Thank you. I still get goosebumps. Thank you for coming and reassuring us that we're safe. And that is when this country became my country. Fast forward a few years later, after some additional schooling, I was stationed in Coronado, California as a combat cameraman. And most of it was deploying on short stints, training stints here and there, and having a lot of fun in Germany or Korea, Philippines. It's awesome. Just fun stuff. Then it came my turn to deploy overseas, and I deployed with the Army's infantry to Iraq. And what that meant was going through specialized training, taking things a step above just being a sailor to also carrying my weight downrange. And I spent those 6 months becoming an infantryman to gain that trust. Going on convoys, going on air raids, going out to forward operating bases, and then the outposts outside of the forward operating bases, dodging snipers, all the stuff you see in movies, doing my job as a combat cameraman. And then it got real. Something very difficult and very horrible happened, and it was captured on camera. And my job was to take that footage and edit and create something that could then be analyzed by my superiors, among other things that happened on the base. And as I'm sitting there, when I say in the bio, a very unique line of duty, sitting there at a computer and having to watch that over and over and over again, just doing my job. And I felt what was like a jagged knife etching glass. And I didn't know what to do with that. I said, I'm just editing video. That's not a big deal. But looking back, it was a big deal, because at this point, these were my brothers, and I was watching them die. But at that time, I needed to bury it, and buried it. I came back very, very numb, not recognizing that was what had happened. And a few months later, when I was awarded Military Videographer of the Year, and first place this, and first place this, and all these great accolades, I stood on stage in front of hundreds of people and felt absolutely nothing. And the photographer who won nudged me and says, "You know you can smile, right?" Oh, that's right. About then is when I realized I had a problem. But I wasn't ready to face it, because I was tough. I didn't have to deal with this yet. It wasn't that big of a deal. Soon after that, I left the service, and about a year later, I took a job with the Special Operations Command doing video productions. Like, cool, I'm gonna do what I'm good at. And then realizing that was a trigger, and realizing that something that I loved, something that was a passion to me, was how I, in my unique way, served my country, was now causing me harm. And that's when I decided to do something about it. And I went to the VA in Tampa, which a lot of people have iffy experiences about the VA. I understand that. I was blessed with a good experience. I wouldn't say really good, because what followed was a series of incredibly painful processes to move through that healing, requiring me to also move into my sister's apartment and sleep on the floor next to her bed. But that's what it required. I knew I was not safe by myself, and I needed somebody. But that process needed to be worked through, because in my mind, the impervial they that exists, if I don't, then they win. And they're not going to win. They're not going to take that piece of me, that way that I have to bless other people's lives. And I remember the breakthrough that happened. It was like this weight that lifted. And I was able to take a contract over to Afghanistan and teach broadcast journalism and documentary arts to Afghanis. That also became a process of healing, because I was able to use that to better somebody else's lives. And through a series of setbacks, I have been able to move past those triggers to once again engage in a medium that has the potential of touching other people's lives. But we never arrive. And this is the point of all of this. There's a couple points that I want to make sure are understood. You never arrive in your healing. I'm not going to lie to you and say you will not feel things. But that debilitating feeling that you get from these triggers, from these experiences, do not need to stay. And that takes courage. That takes strength, and it takes courage to say, I need help, and I can't do this alone. But that's not to say that you won't have to take a step back, or you won't feel those self-imposed distractions to avoid it. But I try to remind myself, and I'm here to try and remind you and help you see that the choice is always ours. You can become weaker or wiser, prideful or proud, small versus strong. And that is a choice. And for some people, it'll be a daily, minute-by-minute choice. My message to veterans who are on the fence between seeking help and not. What was said to me, I did a suicide awareness walk to Wendover, from Tooele to Wendover, with the Life's Worth Living Foundation. And it was 100 miles. I didn't do all the 100 miles. That would be crazy. In the back of my mind, I wanted to, but it was a relay, and we did that. And during that, someone said to me, if you're still breathing, you're still needed. And that our mission continues. And for some, it's in a variety of ways, unforeseen or even undesirable or wanted, which is the case with this documentary. Of all the things that I felt inspired to tell a story about, was a very painful subject of suicide. Because nobody wants to talk about it. And it became easy to turn the camera around on others. What became hard was turning the camera around on myself and realizing I and you are part of that story. And we may not be in the service, but it doesn't mean we aren't capable and in a position to serve our country. So your story and your pain can be part of and a tool in continuing your mission. So embrace the suck. Because I'm not going to lie, there are plenty of times that I said to that therapist, I hate you and I want you to go away. I don't want to do this. And he was very stern, but embrace the suck. And always remember that your country and the citizens and your neighbors and your family are still counting on you. Find your creative way. Find your way that's unique to carry on and continue that mission. Thank you.